Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the New Normal podcast with Lee and Chantelle.
Hello, Chantelle. How's work?
Oh man, if only my coworkers will watch this. Well, basically, I'm going to be in a new role and I'm going to have to do some conflict resolution stuff, which is great. I feel like I'm doing that right now for myself. And basically the lesson I've learned is because so I respond to situations really passionately and it can come off as very like mean or direct and like depends on the person. They might not want to be direct. And I've been learning from yoga to just keep calm and be patient and have better conversations.
You've been learning
And
from yoga to reach your inner space.
yes, so I just got a hoodie that says the journey to inner space, and then it has like a space guy on it. Anyways, it's this from this place in Vancouver called Jaybird. If you haven't been, it's like really cool. There's no like mirrors, it's in a dark place, and then you just get in your zone, you get into your mind. So, anyways, I've been going to these yoga classes regularly, and I have been getting into my inner space and having mental clarity. So I feel really good about it, and I want to preach this because maybe it'll help someone in their conflict resolution, whether it be personal or professional. In my case, mainly professional lately. I mean, it used to be personal, like with our relationship, but I think I like figured it out. Anyways, so now why you be looking like that?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, well, we'll see. And so basically, what I want to get at is the things that I learned in yoga, which is like breathing exercises and like just like keeping my mind calm and finding my peace while I'm trying to comb through the conflict or try to keep my emotions at bay while trying to communicate something is like very important and I think is like overseen in actually trying to communicate effectively with other people. So I did that today. Okay,
I
so
did that too.
someone came up to me and was talking about a situation where I would have to maybe train someone, not even in my field of like area, even. And I don't know, it's just like, oh, well, help this person out so it can free your time to do other things too until you can continue learning. But the approach that was taken here was bothersome to me because it wasn't helpful. And the problem is when someone thinks they're helping you, but they're actually making the situation worse. And like it's so frustrating to even like go through that and communicate with someone about it. Like it's frustrating. Like usually my response would be like, oh, just like give up and like throw a fit or throw a tantrum. And I think that I handled the situation better because I remembered how to keep calm and like get to the point and like be present about what's happening and be objective about it too. So
Why why were you able to keep calm when you wouldn't be able to before? Because you breathe? You
yeah, I think that I'm like
you
more aware of
because
how I'm feeling.
you didn't breathe before?
No, I probably didn't. I probably like hold in all of my anger inside. And like this time I'm like trying to breathe and like trying to remember how I'm feeling. So if I have like something triggers me, like now I know. And like I know how I start to feel and like how I start to respond so passionately towards something and like towards a situation or towards a person that I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm getting triggered right now. And then I remember, like, okay, I responded like this before, but this is what I want to work on and how I can respond better so that I can, you know, um, um, have this result. Like, I want this outcome to be better. Or like, I
But
think about it in
What
this is what
was
I want to happen from the conversation, not focus on my feelings.
what was the biggest thing before that were blocking you from doing that?
I think it's like on what I think of. So, for example, in this
Or
situation,
or or when you were emotional before, you didn't even know you were emotional. So you didn't even know you should deal with it.
see, I understand the point that you're trying to make right now.
I'm just
And
asking,
we'll get to that.
like what's the, before you get emotional, but you think you're thinking, but now you realize. So if you feel blood rushing to your head, when you're seeing red, when you're tasting bitterness in your
Whoa,
mouth,
whoa, 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 whoa. It's not
you
that bad.
these hints, now you realize, oh, maybe I gotta step back and calm down. I'm not my usual self.
Yeah, that's how I started feeling. And so that's why I'm just like, okay, well, I don't want to come off this way because usually that's the response that people take from me is like, well, I'm pretty intense. I mean, like I can be. I think that sometimes I overthink that I do when I'm really not, but I think in this case, it's more effective when I'm trying to be more objective about the situation. So, yes, what do? I like feel like, okay, so this is happening right now. How can I make the situation better? And okay, to answer your question, what makes it different and what makes it different from my old me, I guess you could say, like, quote, old me, is that I focus so much on myself and what I want to get done, and or I focus on like I know that I'm right, I know that they're wrong type of thing. So I have a closed
That's
mind.
your focus? That doesn't seem like a good focus.
It's not. That's the old me. So the
Okay,
old
okay.
me would have a closed mind and just be like me, me, me. Now the new me is more open-minded and more like, okay, where are they coming from with this? They obviously think that where they're communicating to me is valuable. But why do I think it's not valuable? Or not that it's not valuable, but how can I improve on what they're telling me? So it's not that they're wrong, it's that they see it from another point of view. So how can I add value to what they're looking at? So it's not the like I'm right, you're wrong type of situation, but if you look at it this way, how else can I add value to how you're looking at it instead of like, yeah, just being so wrapped up in my own head and
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
allowing them
I
to
would say
have their point.
you're not as so much, not so much passionate. You were more like reactive.
I guess so, yeah.
If something happens, you just react to it. It's not something you want to do or you want to say, but then because something happens to you or somebody say something, you just react,
Hmm.
say something back. Oh, that that person said that hurt me. Let me hurt them back. Like you're not
Yeah.
thinking, you know.
Kind of, and it's like in spite, like it just happens type of thing. Like I wasn't even thinking, I'll just respond in a way. Whereas now I realize, even through our relationship, like it's actually better to take a step back and like have create that space for myself, even if it's just 1 second of thinking first before speaking, because like you really can't take back your words after saying them, although it's like a lot of people do that, they just say it like and it slips out. Well, like, no, I think like you are responsible for your words and how you affect the other person, and like I think I've lost sight of that a little bit. So that's why now I'm just like I like think about how that affects the other person.
Yeah, if you can't take back your words, like, but it's okay to make mistakes. But the problem is, if you make a mistake this time and the next time you make the exact same mistakes, then you're not really going anywhere.
Yeah, and
So
like
if you say something that hurt somebody, and then you remember like how you reacted to what you said, if next time you consider it twice, that's a progress,
hmm.
you know.
And like I was gonna say something earlier, like even with us, actually, when we don't see eye to eye, I'm adding more fuel to the fire by just like firing back instead of like taking a moment to understand, like, okay, like maybe you're right, which most of the time you are, but sometimes you're not, and or
I don't
sometimes
know.
I
I
need
don't know.
to,
I don't know any of those times,
excuse me,
but that's okay. You know, it's still, you know,
Lee.
what.
So yeah, I'm just more in tune with all of that, especially now in my role, like being in a different position too gives me like it makes me think differently about how I'm actually going to affect people, because then I'm in a position where someone's actually looking up to me in a way, even though I still lead by
Hmm.
following. But yeah, I just want to be more accountable, and I want to make sure that even though if I don't speak, that my actions speak louder than my words, and that I hold my weight and I hold value as well. Because
Yeah.
I guess like part of that is like my journey into recognizing my self-worth. Is that weird to say? I hope not. Like, I don't know if other people go through this, but
Yeah. Even though I'm right all the time,
whoa,
but that's that,
no,
but
definitely not, especially not with directions.
with the direction. I follow the GPS. Okay, smart people gotta know how to
Even with
use other.
GPS, you mess up and it's already telling you. See, that's like that's a tell. That's telling.
Smart people.
You know that TikTok where that guy was telling that girl, how does it feel to be with the best boyfriend or something? What did he say?
He said, how do you feel being with a guy who's never wrong?
Oh yeah, see?
And she's like, no, you're wrong about everything. You're wrong
Yeah.
about directions. You say you don't need it, and when we go to Miami, it takes you 6 hours, but
Instead of yeah.
when it's really three.
See, this is the exact same. I feel like this is the moment. If I could just insert it somewhere, I would, but anyways.
Anyways, let me stay on my point. Okay, guys, this is how girls argue. They take you somewhere else, so
No, I'm not. No,
that so that so that
definitely not.
they distract you away from the point that you're right on.
I was not.
But
Okay,
anyway,
get to your point then.
so my point is, even though I'm right all the time, but
He
that's
likes to think he's right all the time.
but that's not the point, okay? Because you cannot always look at it in the way that who's right. I've learned this from school. I've learned this from reading books. They say most people look at interaction or teamwork or negotiation as a compromise. Is it my way or their way? And then someone's got to lose. Then, but then it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a win-win, you know.
Of course, you would turn it a negotiation tactic on this conversation.
What do you mean? Yeah,
That's
how?
when you know. That's when you know you're getting lawyered. So Lee also like is a lawyer
And the psychologist.
and a psychologist and a philosopher. Like he's just all in one. So sometimes that's actually really annoying. Like at first it was like admirable, you know, it's like, oh wow, like this guy's so smart. But now it's just like, could you get over yourself?
What the fuck?
You're not always right.
But that's okay. That's not the point, even though I am. But that's not the point.
Revert back to original.
Yeah, like, when we have an argument, it's not for us to figure out who's right, who's wrong. That's not the point. It's for us both to find a way that can, solve the problem.
I'm just looking for the best answer. And we won't even have the best answer most of the time, but we need to work together to get to it. Which I feel like for the most part now in a relationship,
And
we do.
just real quick, a good point you mentioned just there, right there, is people are very loyal to their point of view. they view the point or the method, the approach, whatever it is, as theirs. And then when they argue, they feel like they're being attacked personally. And then if their method or point of view is not taken, they feel like they lost. But then that method, that point doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to anybody.
Yeah.
You know, like if two people in a relationship figure out a way to make the relationship work, both people win, no matter which method. None of the method, even if you come up with a method, it doesn't belong to you. There's no ownership of ideas. They're just, they're just out there for you to take. So,
Yeah.
so when you argue or discuss something or whatever it is, you should treat it as I come up with an idea or I have my way and you have your way. Then we put them up both on the table and see we have two ways. Now let's figure out which way is better instead of this is my way, this is your way. Let's figure out whose way is better. Who's right, who's wrong, whose way is right. That way doesn't belong to you. Stuff like that's an ego thing.
Yeah, but that's why I say it's better to just work together and then find what works best. Like it's not yours or mine or whatever. It's like, okay, how can we get our most best ideas to be together or like have a hybrid or like whatever. Like refine it every time.
That actually happens in fighting a lot. Like especially in Chinese Kung Fu or whatever. Or even in other disciplines, like boxers think boxing is the best, and Muay Thai thinks Muay Thai is the best, and Jiu-Jitsu thinks Jiu-Jitsu is the best. And they get into their head thinking that, boxing belongs to me, I am boxing. And they refuse to learn any other method that works because they're like, oh no, that's Taekwondo thing. That's a Jiu-Jitsu thing. I don't do that. And then later on, when you see in UFC, the people who are actually goes around, they don't have a quote unquote style, do the best. When Khabib learns striking, he does better than other wrestlers. And then when Charles Oliveira, who's a jiu-jitsu guy, learns striking, he does better than other people. And when striking people like Israel Adesanya didn't know any grappling, and he learned grappling, and he does better than other people. It's the people who just look at everything as they're like all equal. Let's figure out what works instead of saying, this is this discipline, this is mine, that discipline, like I'm against theirs. Like I'm a boxer, I'm better than a wrestler, or I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, or like whatever guy, like doesn't matter. Like what are you doing? If it works, you test the method against the other methods. If it works, take it. That's the best thing about being a human. You can learn, you can critically think, and you can take anything you want, rather than if you're a dog, if you're like a, I don't know, whatever, Chihuahua or something, you're gonna walk like a Chihuahua, you're gonna bark like a Chihuahua, you cannot learn from a husky, like you're born that way, it's set for you. Whereas for humans, you can look at things and adapt and like mold yourself into the person you want to be. That's like the biggest advantage of being a human. But most people throw that away because they're so in their head about who they are already, and they refuse to change or learn or adapt.
Yeah, and I think in like this situation, at my workplace, for example, someone's giving me feedback on my workflow and the work that I do. And I had an open mind, I thought about it, and I found reasons, and I reasoned why it was a good idea or why I thought it wasn't a good idea. And like I had justification for it. It wasn't just a like, no, like I'm an expert in what I do. I'm gonna keep it this way. It was more of, okay, like what you're trying to propose is actually affecting my workflow. So it actually doesn't work. Like I can try that, but I foresee that it's gonna affect my workflow negatively than you had anticipated or proposed it would. So, and handling that when I know something is like I'm owning my own craft kind of, and like being an expert in my role, and then having someone on the outside comment on something that they don't know any, like they don't have any understanding of my processes, bothered me. And my initial reaction is like, oh, well, why are you, getting into my business when you really don't know what I do day to day type of thing. But instead, I was just like, okay, like, why are they telling me this? Like, firstly is like, okay, why are they telling me this? Secondly is like, I'm actually bothered by them telling me this. And then thirdly, how can I alleviate both sides of the equation so that we both get something out of it, or we both get a win out of it, which is like working together.
Also, another point is what I just said was, there are people who have big ego and they, even if they're wrong, they refuse to admit it. They refuse to take the better thing. But then also there's another side where there is no better or worse. We see this in fighting and in business. As an example, if Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were working in the same company, they would have fought to the death. Neither of them would agree with each other because their vision and style of where they want to take the company are completely opposite. But then as we have seen, both Microsoft and Apple are successful. Both of their methods were right. It's just like a diet. Some people are so big on being vegan. Some other people are so big on keto. Everybody has their own diet. And if they're passionate about their diet, you put them in the same room, a big fight will always break out because they always believe their thing is right and the other party is not listening to their reasons. But then the problem is, it's not that they're right or they're wrong, it's that a different thing works for different people. And they're arguing about things based on a different premise. In university, we play a game. I don't know if you played it. It's with a very good teacher. I won't name the name, but
Okay, well, you're gonna have to tell me after because
uh,
we'll see if I recognize this game.
yeah. So we play the game. So the teacher hand out the rules for the game for like 10 tables. We had 10 tables. Each table has like 5 people or whatever. And the teacher handed out the rules and then we started playing. And then after 5 minutes, we switched tables. We switched like groups to play with, basically. And then we went to the next table and the next table. Slowly, people started fighting and arguing. And everybody thought they were right. And everybody thought the other person was dumb and not listening to them, not listening to reasons, because they're not following the rules of the game. They're like playing things that don't make sense. And at the end, the teacher came out and said, the rules I gave each table is different. So
Oh yeah, I played this.
So all of you, like they all mostly look the same, but then there are minor differences. So all of you were playing based on different rules, and then that's the rules you have in your head, and you're arguing against them, and they have a different rule set in their head. So they think you're dumb, and you think they're dumb, but then it just, the differences between you two has nothing to do with who's dumb.
Mm.
I think that actually I remember vividly. That hit pretty hard. Not many things that I remember from school, but that's one of the things I remember. And I think that's a very good point. And that happens a lot in real life in all sorts of situations.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why, like in this case and in my situation, or even just in our relationship now, it's just like, okay, maybe you're looking for a different result. That's why I'm trying to understand like what the other person is trying to get at. At the end of the day, like they see something that I don't. What is it? And like, why don't I see what they see, you know?
Yeah, just add on real quick to the rule set. The rule set of the game is basically your perspective to life. When you hold a different perspective than other people, you're like living on a different dimension. Like you argue, even if it seems like you're arguing about the same thing, you're not. So you never agree. So
Yeah.
if you don't see it from the other person, you don't try to understand their perspective, where they're coming from. Like it's something that you say this a lot. Like a lot of people say this a lot. It's like, why do they do that? You know, why they do
Mhm.
that? You say that because you don't have their perspective. You don't come from where they come. If you had their childhood and upbringing and education, all of that, you would do the same thing as them. So the reason they do that is now because, it's like a result of all of the life experience combined that led them to that moment in life that make that decision. So if you judge them, their decision making based on your life experience, then it's a completely out of sync.
Yeah, of course. Um, Actually, like, what prompted my thought is also, um, are we responsible for how the other person feels when we don't know their background?
Mm.
And so, like, yeah,
Or like depends on who you are, what your relationship is, and and all of that. If you go to work and you're you're there to do the job and they're not doing the job, then they're whether they are not, like whether whatever they feel, it's kind of irrelevant.
hmm,
It's kind of like back. I think this is still a thing, but for firefighters, there's a different set of standards for females because they're trying to do a gender equal thing. Like, oh, females physically are not as strong, so they give them a lower standard. But then the problem is when you're a firefighter, your goal is there to back up your other firefighter uh, teammates. So I don't care if you're guy, girl, you're hurt at home, you're emotionally unstable, whatever it is, you got to be able to pull me out of the fire when I need you to. That's what you sign up for. That's the purpose of being a firefighter.
hmm,
So if you sign up to do a job and you're not doing the job, then you know like that's whether like maybe you don't have a choice, maybe it's not your fault, but it still doesn't change the fact that you sign up to do this job and you didn't do it.
yeah. So that's the thing that I'm trying to also be more like aware of is that other people are at different stages of their mental health. And like I realized that I could be a trigger to another person. But at the same time, I'm thinking about how, well, we still need to get this done. So if someone is not in the right place, like mentally in the right place to be doing their work, like is it the employer's responsibility to be able to give those like mental breaks, if you will, if the workplace requires it? So, like from my experience, and I've talked about this before, is like customer service. Um, if I have a like really abrasive customer, I I need a moment to like regroup in the back of the store or whatever, like whatever have you, um, is that acceptable, and is that a situation where a colleague needs to be more empathetic to my needs, or not even me, like I'm just saying like in general,
Or it's
or even like taking a moment from a coworker that does not have empathy for the other person in a conversation.
it's a little different because you're working in public right now.
I
In,
guess so.
be, even if you want to, you can't really do much, you know. But in private, how it works is if you underperform and you're replaceable, then you'll be replaced.
Hmm.
Regardless of the reason. You can say, oh, I got, you know, I have mental health issue. You can say, you know, you can say anything you want. It doesn't change the fact that you're underperforming on tasks that uh, can be replaced by somebody else who can always perform better.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, it's like if you cannot complain that always tall guys get into NBA. That's just they perform better. You can't complain in the back room like I'm shorter. That's why I'm. It doesn't matter. I need this many rebounds, this many scores. Can you get it?
Hmm.
You know. And if you are deficient in certain areas, let's say you're a customer service person and you need more breaks than other people, then you better do something else better than anybody can do, and that's irreplaceable. Like if you're a CEO of a company and you have weird quirks, you know, you act all weird and nobody likes you. But when it's time to make hard decisions, you're the only one who can lead the company to the places, then maybe you still keep your job. Like,
Mm.
you know, like, but then if you can't be like, oh, all of my areas are weak, but I want you to accommodate for my needs. That doesn't, you know, like that doesn't really work in private.
Yeah. I guess like another thing too in public that I actually um forgot to mention is that there's unions. So like one thing that's like offensive is like so like sensitive and then it'll be a whole thing. Like
Yeah,
documents written up or whatever. Like I'm not sure how it works. I haven't gone through the process, but like
yeah,
yeah, I can
because
imagine that it's a lot of paperwork and then
yeah, that
just not
takes
resolved.
that takes the option out when you ask like, should I have to deal with their emotions? When firing them, replacing them is not a choice, then you have to deal with it. What else are you gonna do?
Hmm.
You know, in private, it would be a more of a decision. If you had that power, it would be more of a decision of yours. Is it worth it to keep this person or go through the trouble to hire a new person? That's more of a question.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, in private or in public?
In private, that's more of
Yes.
a
Okay.
question. Like, but then in private, like for example, right now there's a shortage of labor. Even if your workers do a very bad job, you still gotta consider it twice, three times before you fire them, because you might not be able to find a worker to replace them. And even if you do, they might just do as bad of a job because they don't need the job that badly.
Hmm.
So there's that decision for you to make. But in public, you replacing anybody is not an option. Then you don't even need to consider it. You just gotta work with whether you like it or not, whether it's the best for the organization or not. You gotta work with it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough to be in a situation where you don't really have a choice. So it's more of a challenge to be forced to work with people who aren't like-minded or who are clashing all the time or who find things offensive so easily. It's like risk mitigation as opposed to being more proactive. So I feel like that's where I'm at in my workplace. It's just like, okay, so what's collateral damage now? Like someone's gonna not feel good about something, and it's like you can't make everyone happy. And in public, I feel like that's what everyone's trying to do is try to make everyone happy, but clearly that's not the way to go about it.
Yeah, well, the difficult thing is in public, you don't really have a you don't have a goal to unite you. Whereas in private, each company has a mission, and that's a goal that unites people. Even if you come from different backgrounds, different, you're not like-minded, but if you all of you are working toward the same goal, you can still share that common ground and work together. You don't have that in public, so it's a lot harder.
There
But
is the mission and stuff like that, but I don't think that it's like um embedded into the culture. I feel like there's not much of a culture. There's like subcultures, and then within the subcultures, it's like more subcultures. So it's not very like,
you don't really have a mission. The government doesn't really have a mission.
I mean, the organization itself does, but like it's not.
The government is led by a president whose goal is to get elected, and they get replaced every
Prime
4 years.
Minister. We are Canadian. We have prime ministers.
I follow US news. Okay.
But you are a Canadian citizen, you have been sworn in, and you took the
Whoa.
test.
Whoa.
Just saying.
To expose me like that. But anyways, back to my point. See, guys, this is girls be distracting you from
I'm
away
not
from your point.
distracting you. I'm just trying to,
Okay, so my point was, in public, you cannot fire other people, so it's difficult to assemble a team that you want. But then on the flip side,
it's true.
the good thing is you can't get fired either, so you don't have to make everyone like you.
Everyone's settling.
You know, in private, you have to politic a little bit, is because if
Oh no, there's
people,
politics in public still,
no,
but not as hard.
but I'm saying in private, you can get fired, so you got to worry about not being liked by people. Whereas in public, you won't get fired because you're part of the union too, so you can more or less do things your way. So there's the flip side of the coin of that. You can't fire other people, but at the same time, you can get fired, so you can do more of be more of yourself. If you don't care about the emotional stress that comes with not being liked, then there isn't really real life repercussions of not being liked, because they can't fire you anyway. Why would you care about not being liked?
Maybe this is my time to shine, because I'm not really there to make friends, and like my friend is leaving for another job. So I mean, like, there's other friends. I do have friends, but like, who I directly work with.
Yeah,
Very
you can
difficult.
try out more things that are more controversial. If in private you try something, it doesn't work, they will come to you, be like, hey, it costs us so much money, like, stop doing it, otherwise we'll fire you.
So it's my time to shine, to be an entrepreneur. Sorry, an intrapreneur. That's what you're telling me. I need to accept the fact that this is happening, and maybe I can actually change my workplace with no repercussions.
You don't have to change the workplace. You just experiment for your own benefit to figure out what works for you. What
I want my experiments for the greater good. If other people will be participating in it, I might as well have a win-win situation.
It's like they're CEOs of companies that are going bankrupt. They go in, they try to save it for 3 years, 5 years. The company goes bankrupt anyway, but then they come out with like highly experience that nobody else has.
Oh, this is true.
So the CEO themselves benefited greatly, and they look very nice on the resume. They're like, oh, I tried to turn it around better than anyone else, and I had this like so much experience with not having money, and people were scared and all types of things. But he couldn't change the company. He couldn't saved it. But then it kind of doesn't matter for him. So the same thing for you. if you figure out a way to, help yourself grow and gain experience that you couldn't have from anywhere else, then it's a win for you. Whether the office looks the exact same way 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it's irrelevant to you.
I'm taking full advantage of that, and I'm finding
Which
ways that I can add value to myself as well.
which you will, because for the past couple 100 years, I don't think the government has changed much.
Well, the biggest threat is AI and robots taking over my job. So
iRobot.
this is true. Like in Walmart, my cousin sent me a snap, and there are robots now doing the, like, what is it when they're cleaning the floors? I forgot what it's called, but like they're cleaning the floors, and it's based on like AI, maybe like the machine knows where it's going and knows where, and it's walking into people. So like that janitor, or custodian, or however nice way to say the person who helps clean the floors, that job's been taken away. Now a robot, like, has taken that job.
That's only a simple task.
Yeah, but
Imagine,
I'm saying, like, it's a
think
start.
think about Tesla, autonomous driving.
Yeah.
Like how complicated is that? Like people don't think about it. People like drive like by default, so they don't think about how complicated. But if you really think about it, you run into all types of random scenarios that you don't even know what to do. Sometimes you'll be driving and you see construction, you're like, what does that sign mean? Like, the road doesn't always operate the same way.
Yeah.
Elon Musk has shown before that in certain areas there are camels or horses that run across the street. And then he's like, cars got to be able to see these things and like recognize it and know what to do. So that's like very complicated task, and it's getting like closer and closer to getting completed. And with the Tesla bot, he says in a few years it's gonna be able to go buy your groceries and cook for you, and go, like escort grandma to places.
Mm.
Yeah. So if your job mostly just consists of repetitive work, then most likely you're gonna get replaced.
Which I know, and I'm very.
Especially if it's some like words on the computer, like you do data entry, you do
Mm-hmm.
things like that, it's gonna be so easy to be replaced. Obviously, computers are gonna play computers better than you do. You play real life better, so it's a lot harder for robots to do real life stuff.
Yeah, and we had this conversation in class like several years ago where, like, okay, which jobs, are going to have longevity over the jobs that don't, and automated jobs, or jobs that can become automated, are obviously going first. The ones with who keep the human interaction are the ones who stay longer. So, like, nothing can beat a human interaction, like whether it be consultation or something like that, that has something to do with like analysis maybe, or like an experience, like a restaurant experience, compared where a waiter or waitress comes to you, compared to like you ordering on your own on iPad.
Yeah, it's it's a lot harder to replace a human that understand, like they do human things like
Yeah.
art, and or take a bunch of information and take other people humans perspective into consideration and make a decision that have a big implications. Those are going to be very difficult to be replaced. But all of the repetitive work, even the jobs that most people don't consider, they think it's like a highly skilled, intelligent job, like accountant, can be pretty easily replaced.
I
There,
believe this as well, actually.
there are although they don't work that well yet, but then there are actually software that are designed to file taxes for you. You just put in
Mhm.
like the basic information and then it runs a algorithm and then it knows how to file.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And we've seen banks getting disrupted by simpler online banking. You know, you don't need a bunch of tellers. You don't need to all the complicated things. You just put in basic information online and you can move your own money around. You can move your money around now easier than ever with such basic operations, you know.
yeah. So, anyways,
So that's what you worry about, getting replaced by robots.
um, a little bit actually, not gonna lie, because like people in public really do think that their job is safe and it's stable. Maybe to some extent, but I really don't think so. And we're starting to see that more and more in our everyday lives and with how technology is moving. So I think that as much as I want to, like, as much as my future plans include focusing on my family and raising kids and things like that, and then having the flexibility to do that through having a stable job, I might not have that luxury that other generations before me in public had. Because that's why people stay in public, it's, oh, it's really stable, you get flexibility, take care of your family, all this stuff. But really, like, people don't see it coming that their jobs are threatened more than ever now. So I'm feeling a little bit not on edge, but definitely I have my eyes and ears open, and I'm very aware of the horizon from where I'm
Mm.
sitting at right now, whereas other people will be blindsided, even no matter how much of information news is out there about how the job market is changing. They're still going to be surprised for whatever reason.
But that will actually work to your advantage. You will enjoy benefits that generations before you couldn't have. So first of all, the jobs by government would not be easily replaced. They will fight so hard to keep it. And
Mhm.
like just look at taxis in Vancouver. They fought so hard to keep Ubers away and they were successful for a long time. And they are not even a government arm. The, the government is gonna, you know, they're not gonna let that go. They're gonna if the jobs can be replaced by robots, the government's jobs will be the last one to be replaced.
Mm,
Just think about how behind your government technology is.
that's
You know,
true too.
it's like the last to adopt new technology, especially if it threatens. You know,
Hmm.
when everybody gets fired, the union loses union fee. So the union doesn't want you to be fired. The union is
That's
gonna
true.
fight to the death to keep your jobs.
Yeah.
So that's first of all. And secondly, when you say, oh, the older generation get to keep their job and they have more flexibility to take care of their kids, but you actually will end up having more flexibility by having robots helping you to do the day-to-day tasks. Imagine you don't have to go grocery shopping, you don't have to do laundry, you don't have to do the basic shit. How much time would that free up for you to just, you know, like you like you'll be able to keep your job, and on top of that, you don't need to do as much to take care of your kids. You can just outsource 80% of the boring daily jobs to robots and do the other 20% that count, you know.
Yeah. So technically, I should stay in government then. I don't know. I always go through like back and forth, but I think that now that I'm trying to understand my situation better and how I can go about creating value for myself, I think that I'm gonna stay true to my build my character and work on what's best for me first, than having to be really in the rat race. Which, by the way, I want to talk about a book in the upcoming pods. But I haven't finished the book, and I want to have a more well-rounded conversation about it. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
that's my but back to the robot real quick. That's like
yeah.
my dream scenario
Of
to
course, of
like
course.
I don't want to do all types of activities that the kids require but don't add value. Like for example, if you cook them eggs in the morning, whether it's cooked by you or cooked by robots, it makes no difference to the kids. So I don't want to do any of those activities. I
Well, if
want
they
to,
cook with me, it's a little bit different than if they have a robot.
yeah, but would you want to be tied down to cook with your kids every day? Like you
I
want
wouldn't want to be tied down to that, but if it's like a event or entertaining thing that we can do together.
exactly that when you have robots, you have the option to choose to do that for fun. Whereas if you don't have the robot, that's just like you have to, you know. I want to have the robots to take care of all those like requirements for human survival, and then I come in to do the meaningful things, whether it's cooking with them, taking to the park, have a conversation, the things that add value to them that only I can do, instead of you're like old times parents do like 10% of things that add value, 90% of the other things are just like they were being a robot basically, right? So so I really hope that happens, even if it means replacing your job.
Well,
Really,
by then, I'm hoping that um, our financial situation would not be an issue.
well, if we can have a bunch of robots, we just manage a bunch of robots to go out and work for us. We make the robots to make phone charms, you know. Do
Don't mind make a mockery of my phone charms. It's actually much more difficult than people think. So when I charge what I charge, it's because it takes time, and time
yeah,
is money.
but that see that goes to my point, is like it frees up your time. Instead of focus on making the phone charm, you can just focus on doing the things that robots can't. You market, you know, you film video, you sell it, and then the robots will be there making it.
I understand.
And
Anyways,
yeah, so with the robots, everything will improve. Your financial situation, your task, your flexibility, everything. So instead of feeling on edge, you should pray that it will happen as soon as possible. Especially if the robots coming from Tesla, then it's a double win for us. Okay.
and yes, not just a double, not just a quadruple.
Whoa.
Anyways, I feel like we covered quite a few topics today: conflict resolution, understanding others from their point of view, communication, job security, stuff. So, anyways, having said all that, don't be normal, be yourself. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye bye.